really fun glamping. We had an kind of emergency water stream meeting on Monday to confirm that they were gonna financially support more. The cost is the same. And it's just so funny, we walk through, there's like a fly on the wall, you would have thought that we weren't gonna have an event, because it's John was like, maybe we should still have this spot, or just shut it, whatever. Maybe it's like, no, it is going to council tomorrow. There is no opportunity to change. So, but I'm excited. What are you here for?
Yeah, I was gonna cook some.
You are. Actually, I saw you walking in and I was wondering, I did that recipe here, but I didn't look at your eyes.
Hey, how'd it go over there?
I was there. Oh, really?
I said I would fuck you right now, but that'd be weird. Well, why would you shape you? I get all that wrong. Except that they wired So you're gonna hear one of them. So typically, what you would say is, sure was me. I'm gonna tell the young bird that. The young bird every time he comes over, first thing out is calls Cal.
Oh, it's just true.
And then he does the same thing. Just be able to ask Dave to get a good impression. They'll be expecting it. No super nice guy. Yeah, they put that.
Yep.
Up there and like.
Was it?
Yeah, I got some.
Yeah, are you tired? I feel like I've never seen it.
Yes. No, that's for your 6 years, 4 years.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's just like traveling in movie. We have
We had figured to put that dryer upstairs.
No, she has to go the first part. A little bit of video. She's a video. I'm almost positive.
So you're ready though. So it's like
She said I should call. But he said, I said this program. Well, just so you're not sitting there.
So you're calling with what frame? Because they're gonna have to do the framing. And they have to come back to the station. Yes. You have drywall or something?
He
reply
said
till
if you
but
really
yeah,
want
you
to,
can do actually
you
talk about 2 minutes like shark food
all
practice.
that.
Where we do like practice, so
And then Megan's part of
he's like mentor kind of. Yeah, what did you cut? Do you think you would go over well there?
I told Ryan about that.
And this is
But yeah, he,
such a great job pulling it all together. And I had to place it because I'm not sure where I just, it's awesome. Yeah, I really like it.
More here.
Yeah,
more-
yeah.
maybe when you talk about
So cool.
he did that one say.
I'm only here for the second chapter.
Is there anything just because that's what he told me.
Good, long time no see. I'm a mess today. I had to come in for the water stream. The bench for it. Only two classes today, but so I was out there this morning.
Yeah. Oh, we're good.
You're stressed.
Mirror for
There's a lot of opportunity.
like a little dirty, but. Good. Vendors will start coming in tomorrow, but the stage just got put up, so I just saw that as I was leaving, that's fine. And I talked to the marketing. I saw him today and he looked terrible. Number 18 hours.
Dave, I got an extra room.
They just, yeah.
Well, everything's done. It's nice to get them.
So Pastor Sam. It's so beautiful out there. I love sitting out there when there's no one. You know, like the calm. Do you want to? But you guys do. Tell me you right? Oh. Oh, yeah, well, hopefully not that. That's really. Yeah. 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 Right. Right there, yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, I love that event. We've been there every year, except for COVID, but they pushed it back. But, I've been vending for 20 years. So it's so nice now that I'm looking forward to just starting to try it. It's like, Saturday night, I don't have to do that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember it was my first. I went to a concert with some girlfriends and I did that. No, I don't. I like when
This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Brewster,
Here.
Gregor,
Here.
Johnson, Kimboga, Miller,
Here.
Orth,
Here.
Otto, Reed,
Here.
Schoen,
Here.
Serrano,
Here.
Worthman.
All right, thank you, City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday, June 23rd meeting of the Eau Claire City Council. This is our, first we'll actually go with our consent agenda, so the folks who may be here for that, that's items number 1 through 18. And if you're, please know that unless an item is pulled out, all the items will pass or fail on one vote during the consent agenda. And then you're welcome to go if your item passes, but you're also welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Do council members have any questions regarding the consent agenda or wish to remove any items for separate consideration? Councilmember Orth?
Yes, thank you, Council President Gregert. Please remove item 15 from the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. So we will remove item number, so you say 15? Yeah. So item number 15. So that is a resolution authorizing Fierce Freedom to conduct O Freedom Fun Run and Fest on Wednesday, July 15th, 2026 in Carson Park. So let's actually vote on everything else but that first. So then on a motion by Councilmember Serrano and seconded by Councilmember Brewster, the consent agenda minus item number 15 has been moved. Is there any discussion by council members? Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Brewster,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Orth,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Serrano,
Aye.
All right, and that passes unanimously. And now we'll take up item number 15 that was in the consent agenda that I had just read, the resolution authorizing Fierce Freedom to conduct O Freedom Fun Run and Fest on Wednesday, July 15, 2026 in Carson Park. And I don't think we necessarily need to introduce the item any more than that, unless anyone has any questions, but we'll move that item. So on a motion by Councilmember Miller and seconded by Vice President Schoen, this item is moved. Is there any discussion or are there any questions on this item number 15? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gregor,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Serrano,
Aye.
Brewster,
Aye. All right, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, City Clerk. So that concludes our consent agenda items, and I'll go into a certificate of appreciation that I'd like to read and invite Scott Rogers to the front. So whereas in 2002, Scott Rogers and his family made Eau Claire their home, quickly embracing the community and dedicating themselves to helping the city grow and thrive. And whereas through both his professional leadership and volunteer service, Scott became a tireless advocate for Eau Claire, its residents, businesses, neighborhoods, and future. And whereas Scott played a significant role in the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce, serving as chair of the Government Affairs Committee and a member of the Board of Directors. And whereas through his work with the Chamber, Scott has helped champion many initiatives that strengthen the Chippewa Valley, including legislative advocacy, transportation improvements, housing initiatives, tourism promotion, downtown development, and support for projects such as the Confluence Project and the UW-Eau Claire Science and Health Sciences Building. And whereas Scott has consistently worked to bring people together in pursuit of thoughtful, practical solutions that improve the quality of life throughout the region, leaving a meaningful and lasting impact on Eau Claire and the Chippewa Valley. And whereas after more than 12 years of dedicated service with the Chamber and decades of civic leadership and advocacy, Scott is now beginning a well-earned retirement, leaving behind a legacy of collaboration, vision, and deep commitment to the community he proudly calls home. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City of Eau Claire, its residents, businesses, and community partners, we extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Scott Rogers for his outstanding service, leadership, and unwavering dedication to promoting and strengthening the City of Eau Claire. And with heartfelt thanks, wish him a happy and fulfilling retirement. Congratulations.
I have a really long speech. No, just kidding. Believe it or not, and thank you, Council President Gregert and council members and city staff and others who are here. Believe it or not, I've spoken to this council a number of times over the years, and I'm not usually nervous, but I am this time. When Councilmember Imboga called me a few weeks ago and asked me if he could do this, or if you could do this, I was really surprised and really humbled by that. However, I thought it was worth talking about and how other people can be involved in our city. Since my family and I came to Eau Claire 24 years ago, I've really been continually inspired by how much people here really do care about this city and this community. We really have something special. It's been the work of many hands that have led to its vitality. Of course, there have always not been just opportunities, but really a lot of challenges. And that really goes from the response of the community before we moved here to the Uniroyal closing. And just this afternoon, we had exciting announcements about the future of the former Sacred Heart Hospital facility. And during my time here as a citizen, I felt called to play some small part in addressing the issues, trying to apply my skills, background, and my interests. You know that I became involved in the chamber first as a volunteer, then as a staff member for 12 years. And with that experience, I think it's worth mentioning that the members of a business community here in Eau Claire really do care deeply about our future, and they'll continue to invest their time and treasure to move it forward, just like I know that all of you care about our community too. I thought about the last line of this, and I do have to say that although I've retired, you haven't heard the last of me. As a private citizen, I expect to continue to weigh in on community affairs, play a role in some of the issues I care about, especially transportation, downtown, and housing. And you actually got an email from me today about the passenger rail project. So I do have my wife Shirley here with me. Thanks. I've enjoyed her quiet support, and you should know that she appreciates this city as much as I do. And we're fans of it whenever we travel somewhere else, which we like to do. And we always say, like, you know, if we didn't already live here, Eau Claire would be a place we'd want to visit. So anyway, I'm humbled by this. Hope I haven't taken too much time in my remarks, but I am deeply appreciative of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Scott, and our Vice President Schoen. some
Yeah.
things to share.
Thank you, Council President Greggert. I did want to just take a moment, Scott, to recognize one of the things that's mentioned in this great certificate of appreciation is your advocacy for housing. I first got to know Scott through his role as a commissioner on our Housing Opportunities Commission. And I just really appreciated your thoughtful engagement and balanced approach to difficult conversation and challenges. And I'm really grateful to hear that we have not heard the last from you yet. And I look forward to your next chapter. And I'm also very proud to be your representative as a District 1 constituent. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Schoen, Councilmember Serrano?
Thank you, Council President Greggert. There's so many things to say about Scott, but I just really want to call out and personally thank Scott for all the ways in which he has helped the city and even myself personally. You've really helped to educate me on so many topics that really, are nuanced and more complicated than might seem at first glance. And I really appreciate our conversations. And finally, so much appreciate your advocacy at the state level on behalf of the city. Really, when we think about your role at the chamber, it was very much a leader of Eau Claire at the state level. And you were just unrelenting in your advocacy on so many things that affect all the residents of Eau Claire for what we can do and what needs to be done at the state level. So thank you so much personally.
Thank you, Councilmember Serrano, and Councilmember Imboga.
Thank you, Council President. You were reading my mind. That's exactly what I want. So, Scott, thank you so much. And for me, I would say it's not about Eau Claire, it's about the Chibwa Valley, the entire Menominee, Osceola, Lake Harry, and the Chibwa and Eau Claire. So thank you for standing up for us. And I hope you keep continuing, and we wish you strength after strength so that we can still milk your wisdom your wisdom every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Imboga. And yeah, Scott, I think we've known each other almost 20 years now. We were both involved in Clear Vision on the issue of transportation, so it's a great pleasure to meet you through that and see your persistence and being able to work together for so many years and have many years ahead working together to improve the community. And yeah, I really wanted to shout out the Chippewa Valley Rally as another piece of your chamber work and community work, and I'm sure that'll be something we all, ultimately, see built up even further because of the foundation that you brought to that. And really excited to have you bring passenger rail to Eau Claire with so many other people and organizations that you've helped start and that you've, anything we can do to help, we will do our best to be able to keep up with you and your passion for that. And yeah, thanks so much. And Councilmember Brewster has something to add.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say this is a little bit of a lighthearted story. So my mom was an instant coffee drinker. And so Scott served me the first cup of coffee made from actual beans in my life at Gloria Jean's in the mall when I was a freshman at UW Eau Claire. And I just want to thank you so much for that.
Speaking of laying the foundation here, okay. Wow. Well, thank you. Yeah, I wish we didn't have to continue to regular business. But thank you, Scott, again. So our first item under ordinances for action is item number 19. And this is actually our only item for ordinance for action. So this is ordinance amending table 8 entitled Parking Prohibited of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Eau Claire to add parking restrictions on North Star Drive and Bobby Street for increased traffic safety. And Engineering Director Ness is here. We did get a presentation yesterday, but happy to hear what else you might be able to add.
I had one follow-up question related to the signage. And just to be clear, the parking prohibited would be no parking at any time around the corner. It would not just be during special events. We want to keep that vision corner clear of traffic any time of the day. So otherwise, I am available for any other questions if there are any.
Thank you for that, Director Ness. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Council President. Director Ness, thank you. So the only, there'll be signage put up, just, signs on posts about the no parking. Any sort of curb markings or just the two signs? I'm just kind of aware, I can see the reason for no parking, but it's kind of an odd place for no parking. And people have been going there for years. People be educated and aware and the visibility and, is there any way to bring attention to the new signage?
We would start with no parking between signs with arrows directing in between the two signs. We can put flags on them temporarily. That's typically how we bring attention to new signs in areas. If we need to, we can paint curb, but we're trying to minimize the amount of curb painting, so we don't have to continue to update the curb paintings.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Miller and Director Ness. Any other questions from council before we move the item? Okay, thank you. So on a motion by Councilmember Mboga and seconded by Councilmember Reed, this item is moot. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gregor.
Aye.
Mboga.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Orth.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
Serrano.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, so under the category of ordinances for introduction, I will just read the two items unless council members want to suspend the rules to vote on either of them today. So item number 20 is ordinance amending chapter 10.24 entitled Special Parking Restrictions of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Eau Claire to remove block face parking in the downtown business districts and add paid parking to City Hall. And then item number 21, ordinance amending the official zoning map for the western portion of 1718 Warden Street. So those items are now read into the record, per se, as introduction. So we can now move into announcements, and after that will be our work session on the capital improvement plan. So if there are any announcements or updates from the city manager or city council members, perhaps we'll start with Councilmember Serrano.
Thank you, Council President Gregert. I just really want to call everybody in the public's attention to the very significant announcement today about District 900 on Claremont Avenue. It was, I had the privilege of being able to attend kind of a big event today. There were a lot of members of the press there, so I anticipate there'll be a lot of journalism written about this big announcement. It's huge. It will have very, very long-term impacts for the city. It's so transformational for what Sacred Heart Hospital was, the vacant building for a few years, and now for what that space will become. I'm super, super, super excited about everything that was announced there today.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Serrano. And any other announcements from council members? As we'll move to our city manager, Dave Solberg, who has not gotten an updated name placard yet. It still says interim on it. Yeah. So we will work on that.
We'll work on it.
But very exciting to have the interim title off the city manager title.
So Yeah, I guess I'd like to congratulate Heartworks in the 900 district also. A great, great building full of potential for Eau Claire's future for the next hopefully 50, 75 years. I'd like to thank Aaron White and Bill Youngberg with our inspectors trying to help them, and they got a shout out at the ceremony today for being helpful with building inspection issues, zoning issues, whatever they needed to do to help get the building off the ground. Their staff has been working overtime on. In the update that I sent council on Friday, I accidentally got the Board of Health and the Housing Opportunities Commission mixed up on there. What I meant to say was the Board of Health has a meeting tomorrow on Wednesday instead of the Housing Opportunities Commission. So apologize for any confusion for that. Would like to note that this coming Saturday, DECI is sponsoring Sidewalk Saturday downtown in the bid districts from 10 until 8. We have Ms. Felton spoke last night about downtown parking, so I do have an update on the downtown parking implementation and timeframe. I was working on that today, but I was not able to get it to set out to council, so I will get that sent out to council, but we are in good shape for an August 1st implementation date. And just to remind everybody that we have a extra week in between council meetings this time around. So next council meetings will be July 13th and 14th. That's all I have.
Thank you, City Manager Solberg. And yeah, we do have that 3-week gap, which doesn't come often. And in the middle of that, we have the 4th of July celebration. So certainly wishing folks a safe and celebratory holiday and 250th for the country. And with that, I'd like to move us toward our work session. But I think we officially have to adjourn this meeting. So if there is no objection from council, this meeting is adjourned. And we will take 5 minutes to kind of get ready for the work session, and the public is very welcome to stay for this.
Oh, I don't know if I'm shiny.
Yeah, we connected all.
The email today from like that. Oh, we didn't see that. There's an email sent out on behalf of. It's like a laundry list of seven green lights.
I just skimmed the cost averaging and you already do what you've done.
Claire, did you get an email from the waste haulers?
The association.
Okay. Yeah, we weren't happy all together. No, I was curious. Because
Everyone's going to give up. Okay. Thanks.
All right, we're going to start our work session in about 30 seconds. All right, so we're gonna get started with our work session on the capital improvement plan here. So we have Director Kitsy Winters, our finance director, here to continue our conversation from yesterday. So yeah, we're certainly ready to have you start, so thank you. Yeah.
Well, great. Good evening, Council. I'm going to try to not repeat some of the information I've already given you, unless it adds value. We are here for our second and final work session tonight before approval, which is on July 13th and 14th. I do want to focus the whole CIP is $305 million. That's about 40% higher than 10 years ago. There is inflation in there, but we have a numerous amount of large value projects or large dollar projects that are in there, which is out of the normal standard average CIP. 2027, we have a just over $60 million investment in capital infrastructure. Of that, focus on sewer, water, transportation or streets, land, building and equipment, and storm would be our top 5 areas. What we try to do on the financial piece of it is keep the borrowing down to keep the impact to the taxpayers or the mill rate or the tax rate at the lowest possible amount. So a portion of that 31% is tax supported. We'll work through those current interest rates this week. Those are kind of going to hold steady, it sounds like. We're using about $1 million of general fund, so that's cash on hand or unassigned fund balance this year. So we're kind of trying to step back into that, but we'll see how our financials are annually. That could increase borrowing on those subsequent years. Like to keep that at about 24 million on an annual basis. Outside of the large projects I've spoken about, you do have an investment in water, kind of a new item there with the Chippewa River crossing. So that's exciting. That is very, very exciting. And I'm going to say Director Berg, this is his last council meeting, so I'm going to point to him to explain all of the projects at CMF this year that I usually advocate for. Lime tower replacement, and we're also replacing a well. Outside of, again, all those standard projects. We talked about Headworks, a lift station, some processing equipment within the sewer plant. Gibson parking ramp, we can talk a little bit about that later with questions, but you are making an investment in some of your surface lots in the community. We are looking at funds on hand for the Schlegel Milch lot, but then these are the next 3 that are on the schedule. Police, investment in police safety equipment, fire safety equipment. So all of those are things that are just needed to do their work to keep them safe or keep the public safe. One new item also of value is the 2 transit mobility vans. So that's 2 of the smaller vehicles. So looking at kind of that, I want to say with VIA, kind of that type of service, but having smaller vehicles, smaller footprints, so that's something that Ty or Katrina can explain a little bit further. Hobbs, we do have an investment in a feasibility study, and then also into some infrastructure repair that's just going to keep the ice cool and frozen, and just investing right in that building. One of the fun items, this is the every 3-year DNR program for the trail grants. So it's a $230,000 grant, so we can make a bigger impact on trails. So this is the larger one, and we'll have a $230,000 match. And that's kind of what we use to invest in our trails in the area. We do have some park projects there, TID improvements that I did talk about, but we are going to begin design of our project plan down in over in TID 16, which would be the Shopko Plaza area. We do have a few roundabouts there within the plans, but I don't think we're going to need them all now. With that, that's some of our larger projects that I did speak about. I don't have any amendments. We have been talking about some, but I will let you guys, you can bring those forward and discuss those a little bit today, or I can as well. We did have one that was proposed for the passenger rail, and our investment is one of the cities on the list, but we are going to approach that outside of the CIP process, just in case you've received emails on that, so it doesn't have to be addressed today. The CIPs went through all of the respective commissions, and again, that's approved on the 13th and 14th. So I just wanted to open it up to our directors then at this point, or questions or anything that you want me to speak on, the larger items, what direction you'd like from me tonight.
Sure, yeah, Councilmember Serrano.
Hi. How do we address each other? Work session. Okay, whatever. Hi, everybody.
Pretty open.
I'm curious, I don't know if maybe Ty Fadness can help. The 2 transit mobility vans, I love that we're doing this, but I'm kind of wondering, is there a plan around how we might use those and how that might impact? I know it probably came before Transit Commission, but I'd love to just get a little update on that. Is that possible?
Yeah, that would be great, yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Serrano, for the question, and happy to be here. So for the $190,000 for the 2 transit mobility vans, it wouldn't be for microtransit like it was with Northern Light. It would be more so for, we have some current paratransit rides that are always from one location to another one, and it might be more efficient to use our own vehicle internally. And then also, it's nice to be able to have smaller vehicles to be more convenient if it's, say, a route that needs, let's say, bus is full and we need an extra vehicle out. We can activate one of those vehicles to go out on a road and help out. And you wouldn't need a CDL, so it could be, it really could be anybody that goes and helps out for that particular moment in time. And also supervisors could use the vehicles too when they're not in need. So it checks a lot of boxes, but it wouldn't be for, I guess, what we've would typically know as the microtransit. It would be for kind of something a little bit smaller. Microtransit.
But we don't have any particular routes that we're looking to service with these smaller vehicles just yet? I mean, other
No.
than this paratransit example you
Yeah,
gave.
because the way it works out with our paratransit contract is they're what are referred to as subscription rides, and that means that it's basically the same time. There's a pickup, and the same time there's a drop off, and it might be more efficient to just have our own vehicle that takes care of those rides rather than paying the $40 per ride for paratransit. Yep.
Thank you. I think
Yep.
that's great.
Any other questions on that?
I was sort of curious about it a bit more too. We discussed it at Transit Commission because we reviewed the CIP and we did recommend it. But so like part of it, I think, is that it seemed like sometimes like we have a lot of buses that are out for maintenance, and sometimes we even have to have those not necessarily maintenance in-house. And can you explain like maybe some of the shortages of bus vehicles that we sometimes run into from that perspective? And
Yeah, we have 22 buses, and the most we have on the road at any given time is 16. But if there are buses that are out of service for preventative maintenance or larger problems, and sometimes they have really big problems and they are out for an extended period of time, we do run into we've actually been pretty consistent with being able to keep buses on the road. Our mechanics do an incredible job of ensuring that they do, but there are times when it is a little bit dicey with the number of extra buses that we have. So a bigger fleet would help facilitate that, ensuring that we don't ever have to not have a bus out on a route because we don't have enough buses.
And then one of the things that also just comes to mind, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate use of these vehicles, but the like sometimes we have council tours or maybe a commission or like maybe new employee tours and stuff. Like, is that a potential use, like having a flexible vehicle that maybe you don't need a CDL driver for, to be able to just kind of get people out to things around the city?
Yeah, the rule with the FTA is that we can't take business from the private sector. So, for instance, we wouldn't be able to provide like shuttle service because it would be competing with local businesses, but we can provide, and we do actually have buses out on the road. If there's a city tour or a local group that comes to town, then we're showing them the city, then it's allowed to be used for that purpose.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Any other council members have questions for? Okay, so maybe we'll focus on council questions for Ty for now. So, Councilmember Brewster.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could give us just a brief overview of how many passengers one of these would fit. Is it similar to sort of the Abbey van situation, or are they a little bit bigger, more like the sort of accessibility school bus kind of thing, or if you could just kind of describe?
Yeah, I would have to see specifically what the purchase in mind would be, but I believe the cutoff is 13. So anything above 13, I think, is what you need a CDL to transfer people. So it would be less than that size-wise. But in terms of specifically if it would be a cutaway or if it would be a minivan, I do not know. I would have to look. Yep.
Anyone else on, Councilmember Serrano?
Can I ask a quickie? Are they wheelchair accessible? I mean, wheelchair?
Yep, that would be a requirement.
Ready?
They would have to be
Thank
wheelchair
you.
accessible. Yep.
And just one other question about it for me is about, I know we're trying to push the envelope on electric vehicles or, plug-in hybrid vehicles and stuff. Are there vehicles that are in that kind of mobility van category that we've looked at? I mean, it would probably only be able to get one vehicle for the price of two.
Yeah,
would be my guess, but
I have seen some electric cutaway vehicles. They do exist, and I do know that there are even companies that you can purchase the electric van, and then it will retrofit the vehicle so that it becomes ADA accessible. So that's an option too. It's something that could definitely be explored. That would also, check another box for what the city's looking at in terms of sustainability. So, I think those options do exist, but like you said, would be a little bit more expensive.
okay. Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for diving into that one.
Yeah.
Councilmember Mbogo?
Yeah, thank you. For transparent, can you try to, for my knowledge, try to school me a little bit for my knowledge and everybody listening, how much money do we spend in terms of gas for this? You say 22 buses?
Yeah.
How much do we spend a day or a month? Because now we are talking dollars, is that right?
Yeah, so if you think one bus right now, a bus is close to $1 million. The way FDA funding works is we're able to get reimbursed for 80% of it, so it's only a 20% local match. So about $200,000 for a bus. When you think about how much they run, it's actually a relatively small, per hour cost for the bus. A bus might run, some of our buses have been on the road for over 10 years, 14 years even. So, and that's, accumulating a lot of miles over the course of its life. So on a per day, it's actually really small. Probably, I don't want to, it's not as bad as you think it would be in terms of a per day cost, but I don't know off the top of my head what it would be. Yep.
All right, thank you. I think we'll go on to more other topics now.
Okay.
Councilmember
Just thought of
Brewster.
another one if that's all right. So the mobility vans, are they eligible for the matching funds, or is that only the large scale?
Good question. Yep, they're also eligible.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
So is that our portion of it then? So are these vans
Nope, that
you
is
know-
the total cost, and then the way the FTA funding works is you have to spend it, and then you reimburse yourselves
Gotcha.
for
Okay.
the expense.
Sounds good, thank
Yep.
you.
Cool, well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Vice President Schoen, you have another topic related to CIP?
Yes,
or-
not for Ty.
Thank you, Ty, so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, I don't know actually what the rules are. I had been in touch with staff about an amendment. This was noticed, so I'm curious to know if we can talk openly tonight about the amendment and get broader input from council on some of that. And
That'd be fine.
I'm seeing nods. So I'm wondering, Kitsy, if you wouldn't mind, I could talk about sort of the general vision or objective of the amendment, but then if you want to share about some of the financial sources of how we could move funds around and what the impacts might be, is that okay?
Sure, and I think that the focus was on the affordable housing project. The original request was 250,000. I've heard a couple of requests, I guess, from multiple council members, 250,000 to 500. Right now, we don't. We encourage council to reduce one project to pay for that, and we try to keep that within that same spending limit. The reason I I say that is because we've got a significant CIP. We have borrowing tied to the affordable housing project already, in addition to all of our safety equipment for police and fire. That was a change that we had to make. So we're borrowing for as many things as we can at this point. So that's our only tool. So what we like to look at is trading $250,000 to take that to $500,000 in 2027. That's something we talked about options for, like possibly just our routine maintenance account that replaces our furnaces and our windows or parking lots, or we have a lot of capital investments. So that's one we could use to accommodate that request. And that's borrowing as well. So we try to match up the funding sources, because I couldn't remove a water project, for example, to pay for affordable housing. So then that's where I kind of offer some advice there too. And I did mention as well that 2027 is the budget you're approving. So, and it's kind of a blessing, I guess would be this best described, for 28 through the rest of the remainder of that, so we can start planning. We need to start making changes or doing things. So you're more than welcome to amend those. If I do not have a funding source for the fire station for the additional 10 million, I think we would probably look at, I mean, it's the city manager's budget, but my financial recommendation would be not to do any other projects that year if I have to fund an entire fire station outside of emergency ones, emergency equipment. So that's something to keep in mind as well on increasing the scope. So that's just my recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say, I'd been in touch with Kitsy, and there were, started maybe increasing 2027 for the affordable, or well, the flexible housing fund balance from 250,000 to 500,000. I also requested that staff consider increasing that from 250,000 to $1 million. And so I wonder, Kitsy, could you just talk a little bit? It sounded like we could potentially source so it'd be a $750,000 increase in 2027, and that could maybe reduce the building maintenance and road resurfacing accounts. And I'm just curious if you could share what that would look like, and then I would also love to hear from council whether council members are amenable to reducing those accounts in order to increase flexible housing fund.
Sure, we do look at some of if it's a smaller amount, we looked at a few multiple different projects. If it's a $750,000 project, you would need a reduction to offset that. We look at the larger accounts, so when I look at building maintenance, I do have some leftover funds, but that's unfortunately not due to decreased need, it's due to capacity of staff. So we do have the aging infrastructure, but I do have some funds that I can apply towards that. I wouldn't want to cut a full $750,000 from that building maintenance. I think we'd want to blend that. One item we can possibly move back as well is the city council audio in here. We have $40,000 this year, and then borrowing attached. I think it's about $250,000 or $240,000 in the CIP. We can look at that, pushing that out. Just due to the staffing and a lot of other projects they have right now. And then streets, we have kept that static. Director Ness can talk a little bit about the road investments. We've kept that at $5 million. So the borrowing power, or how far that money's going, I mean, it's going less and less each year, I guess, of an impact. But we have had the local vehicle registration fee on top of that, so we've been able to use, I guess, the 4 operating buckets I would call to extend the useful life of the road, whether it's mill and fill, overlay. We've increased every year by a mile, but we're not increasing our resurfacing, so it is kind of a very aggressive approach, but we are being able to take more of an investment. So I'd recommend a blended approach, but I would have to take the money from one of a few of those projects as well, and I don't know if there's any smaller ones that Dave would recommend too. We talked about it, but that was at the smaller, the 500,000 level. No.
If you try to fill it, it's harder to get to 750 than it would be 250. But there are, I know there's solar powered signage is a small item that's in the engineering budget, so that could be something that would be $40,000 a year. At the end of the 5-year program for that year, there's Pike Hill improvements that are planned. Mount Simon boat landing restroom, not sure, what the condition of that's in the out years. And I'm a little bit better with the engineering ones than the other ones, just because I spent time in there. You could squeeze potentially a little bit out of the bridge maintenance account on there. Director Ness just received a grant for the HSIP program, but that's funded every year. Not every year do we get a grant for that, so that could save some money. So I think you could take, a few thousand here, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. And then when I also talked to my counterpart at the county in Altoona, when we're talking about, affordable housing and helping with the unhoused, I always try to challenge them to say, if the need out there that the community came out and said yesterday was $1 million, they're requesting $1 million. I don't know if they're having that same request at the county board, but if we could, if we upped it to 500,000 and then publicly challenged our other counterparts to meet us there, leverage our 500,000, maybe the county could put 500,000 in, maybe Altoona can spare 250, so we can still get to that amount that was requested, but we wouldn't have to leverage all of it and try to get those. And then one thing that we were talking about, it would help guidance-wise where you would like the if you have a preference, the funds to go in that flexible. Would you like it to go through the HOC route, or would you like it to go through Housing Authority, because they have a very good program there? Would you like a different type of program, almost like a CDBG type allocation for Habitat for Humanity? If you have ideas how you see a use for that funds, that would help us with the narrative on that in the budget as well.
Those are that is a capital count as well to add. So there are guardrails I have around what we can use those funds for. So I know I've worked with Billy Huffer quite a bit on what we can use those for and getting approval on those. So.
An example would be there's a very strong need for transitional housing for the unhoused right now, but that's rent. So the capital could buy an apartment building, but it's not appropriate to use it for rent because of the parameters that Kitsy has to specify when she issues bonds. Because there's different bonds for streets versus trails versus park improvements when the bonds are sold. So it's not really a staff decision. It's the industry, I guess, decision with that. So that's one thing to differentiate that with the capital funds. If you wanted to put it towards operational type things, that would be rent or something like that. That would come out of the operating budget. That will be the next budget we're examining once the capital's approved.
Okay, so I'm trying to somewhat keep track of who's had their light on for a long time. I know. Okay, so yeah, if we want to kind of dive into this amendment idea around housing, that would be maybe what we focus on for a bit. So I think Councilmember Brewster had his light on a little bit before some of the others.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a pretty substantial fund right now, and how much of that has been spent? I mean, is this more than we can actually spend at the rate we're currently spending? Because my understanding is there's still quite a lot of it that hasn't been spent. And so, maybe we have it available, but I don't, if we borrow it and it just sits there, is that a good use of money either?
No, I don't. A few different things there. We have to borrow on shovel-ready projects. Sometimes that shovel gets put away the day after we've borrowed the money, but plans can change. But yes, they need to be shovel-ready projects. In this interest rate environment, I don't want money sitting because we're earning more interest than we paid for, or than we're paying. So it's called arbitrage. So I have a penalty on that. We also have a policy to use those funds with under 3 years. So at this point, I don't believe we've used any of those HOC funds the last time I looked, which is about a month ago, because they're working on the guidelines. Mm-hmm. I can start looking at that though.
And one other question, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is more of a comment than a question. I guess with the vehicle registration fee money, we're tied to using that for transportation-related projects. But I would kind of be loath, and I think it would not look especially good if we were to just like start using that more like exclusively, like the ratios of what we're using change, so we can pull money out of there to do other things. This is supposed to be like on some level to help us save money by getting more sealing done and expanding the life of the roads. And I think pulling money out of there out of the roads and transit and anywhere else it's being used to do this, I guess I would think very hard before being in favor of that.
Sure. That is something we can look at. We'd have to be publicly transparent, but yeah, and it can't be used for snow plowing or street sweeping. But we can apply it to any other transportation-related item, or we already are using it for some of those capital items that the streets budget used to be able to pay for, and now they're unable to. We'd have an additional maybe $400,000 worth of room in the transit budget that we could use that to continue to pay for transit.
So, Vice President Schoen, do you want
Yeah, I would like to offer, so previously in prior CIP budgets, funding was awarded to this account, and it was used to help subsidize Prairie Heights and the Eddy and provide affordable housing units there. Hawk has been reworking their scoring criteria, which is why we haven't had a call out for new projects, but absolutely the commission would advocate for more funding. I guess I can't speak on behalf of the commission, but I would say there's definitely a need, and I've spoken with other community members that are really adamant that this need exists, and we need to also provide adequate funding levels in order to solicit meaningful projects. And so I think right now, once the rubric, which I believe is slated to come to council for approval in July, looking at staff, maybe some nods, we'd be able to go out for a call, a request for proposals. And I anticipate there's a lot of conversations happening on Hawk and unique and innovative housing concepts that would be eligible for this type of funding. I also think about the RDA districts that we'll be considering that would also be an eligible way to pair those two efforts together nicely, and I just want to right size the resource, so that would be the only comments I have to offer there.
Okay, so that was going to be my question was, what is the difference, or what would be any kind of constraints we would have we allocated to Flexible Housing Fund versus RDA? Because it seems like that RDA money could be used to rehab and could have a lot of the similar meet some of the similar objectives in terms of what the community is asking. Does it make sense? How constrained are we if we budget for some of this? Can then it get moved to RDA, or if there are opportunities that come up, or does it make more sense to allocate some of it to RDA first? I don't know.
I'd probably recommend RDA funding would be easier to use. I think it can
to use because it's fewer constraints.
Yes, they're usually capital in nature. In that regards, and I think I think there'd be less internal control issues. I'm just, I guess, in conjunction with the CDBG grant and other items that we have in relation to Hawk. So I guess operationally, that would be my recommendation, is to look towards a specific capital investment like the Eddy or the pre-pandemic ones that we had started on.
Let's see, Councilmember Mboga.
Thank you. My question is for Peel. Peel, can you come out front, please? Help me to understand and everybody. Can you speak more about the housing? Like in a nutshell, we have a lot of people on the waiting list. How many maybe apartments we have, and are these apartments affordable, and what do you mean affordable? Affordable is $200 a month or $1,000 a month? What is affordable?
Affordable by definition would apply to everybody. It's 30% of your household income being spent on housing, including utilities. So if you make $1 million, 30%. If you make $10,000, 30%. Low income, which we typically consider 60% or below, that's where we're struggling to meet with new housing. New housing being built without, like a duplex, a twin home, without any profits or anything is still over $300,000 just to build it. I think funding like this would be most effective in like LIHTC projects or looking at rehab with the new RDA district, helping to remove some blight so that more land is available, similar to the excess land project. I think using funding in connection with the excess land project to build housing that could then go to like the housing authority, but $1 million would build 2 single-family homes. It would be much more effective helping with LIHTC projects and stuff like that, produce more units.
Aaron?
Yeah, I guess wearing my, economics degree hat, I just think of a lot of what we're doing with regards to some of the discussions about LIHTC and everything like that, and even a lot of it is just like subsidizing a facet of the economy where businesses aren't paying their employees enough to live. And everyone is paying for that. And then we have money that we have to find to do this. I'm very in support of us finding money to do that. I would be much more in support of us finding a way to do it so it's in perpetuity. My understanding with a lot of the LIHTC projects is that they have a set period of time for which it has to be affordable, and then it no longer has to be. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to.
I think is it 30 years usually for those, or for LIHTC projects? Yeah.
Yeah, the initial is 30 years. They can renew for an additional, or at the end of that first contract, they can choose to make it market rate.
Sure. Okay, so, we could put money into that, would help potentially for 30 years, 80% CMI, potentially 60% CMI. I'm not seeing too much LIHTC below 60% CMI. And then, or if we did something and it went into the Housing Authority's portfolio, it would exist there as long as the house lasted as a house or apartment building or whatever. So, yeah, I would want us to use our money as effectively as possible to have it be useful for as long as possible, and that would be my thought on that.
I would just make one comment relates to LIHTC. LIHTC projects are right currently the only ones that are hitting anything below 60%. The 2 LIHTC projects that we have active, they have a percentage at 30% CMI, percentage at 40 to 50, 60, and then some at market rate. They're the only ones that are doing that. To get below that, it does require some sort of a state or federal program heavily subsidizing it. The best we're getting right now at the natural market are some of the projects that Mark Held has done that are 60% CMI rent rates, and those have actually creeped up a little bit, so I'm not sure they're even at 60% CMI anymore. It requires some sort of federal or state program to get down below there, and LIHTC's one of the few programs. We're not seeing Section 8 housing really here anymore, so it's one of the few programs that does. But you are correct, it's not forever. If they choose not to renew the contracts, they can go to full market rate at some point in time.
Thank you. Vice President Schoen.
I wanted to, trying to stay on topic within the bounds of the work session, but in regards to the scope of the amendment and some of the work that Hawk is doing, I mentioned they're revising their scoring rubric, and it prompted one other thought that I want to share briefly, which is Another use of the funds previously in this line item went to Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association to maintain affordable housing. So it was rehabbing existing affordable housing and keeping people in their affordable homes and or apartments permanently. And that is something, the scoring criteria that HAWC is working on has been revamped to help ensure that the use of these funds would be able to be used in those types of situations, and that those types of projects would be scored highly, in addition to projects that would be LIHTC projects that would create a higher volume of units. So I just wanted to mention that I think the reality is just our community is in a housing shortage. I think Larry, you brought up how many families are on the waiting list for housing. I just think that as much as we are able to make that a priority within this budget, we should. And that's the intent of the amendment, really. And anyways, I don't know that I heard a whole lot from people other than there's maybe some hesitation around reducing our road projects budget in order to allocate more funding here, but I would say I personally am okay with reducing our road budget in effort to make sure more people stay in their homes and create new housing opportunities in the community.
I guess I was wondering about, I think it might be helpful for us to know, given that this is a 5-year CIP, like when some of these tax incremental districts are going to close and be able to be used for affordable housing, because maybe some of the conversation could be about what is the bridge to that point, and what are some of the programs that we may want to create and actually start funding now a bit more before we have the larger influx of funding. So that's maybe one way to look at it in terms of the 5-year CIP, because I think it's about 5 years out for some of the major ones, right?
Yes, the next one that'll close will be to number 9. We are looking at speaking with the Joint Review Board to potentially transfer the increment into another blight district. So we will get their permission on that at the next upcoming Joint Review Board, but that's 5 years out. And then because it's closing after the legislation, you'll have 2 years of increment that you can put towards affordable housing. So it'll be around 2032 that I'm planning on. Then TID 8 will close after that. That one was a different, that was a blight district as well. And that is one of your larger ones, but it's all outside of the CIP in the 30s.
Sure.
I hate to say, but.
Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. I support us increasing this. These are just hard decisions because, budgets are about choices and about what kind of community we want to be. And we want to pay for all the things. We want good roads. We want our water clean. We want all of these important things. I've seen this affordable housing fund put to good use, especially, I would say, being gap financing for a number of projects, but then also this work to help the Hmong Mutual keep some of their people in apartments that needed renovation because of mold. And I remember it was something like, instead of their rent going from $600 to $900, the fund was helping to renovate through this flexible fund. And so a whole lot of people could continue to stay in their apartments. So to me, those things matter. And if you say, what are our priorities? Heck, even if we're at 500K or $1 million on this, we're still only 1% or 2% of our entire CIP over the next 5 years. So I think it's important that we figure out a way to make this a bigger priority. So I support overall. I'm glad that the HAWC is redoing the criteria. I know that takes a lot of time and work, but hopefully it can happen soon. So I'll be a supporter of an amendment.
Okay, so I think, Clara, you were probably next.
Yeah, I also really support the idea in principle of more support for housing as a community. I'm just a little still wondering, Kitsy says RDA would be easier, and I know I don't understand all the details, and I'm not sure I necessarily need to dive into all the details, but to what degree does that, impact how we, I'd be happy to be a second on an amendment, but I kind of thinking that if the RDA is, gives us more options, given that we still don't quite have, like, shovel-ready projects necessarily, that if that makes more sense, I kind of still, I don't know if I can ask a question directly of of Jess, but I'm kind of wondering what her thoughts are about that.
Yeah. It is a work session. I don't know if we want to talk to Aaron White about the difference between, the functionality within the RDA, kind of the Cliff Notes version of that versus the using it within the Hawk funds. You do have $1 million left from the 2026 project within the RDA, so you can have more buying power with that. You also have funding left from 2025 from the flexible housing as well.
I'd probably specify the major difference would be execution. Whether it's the RDA or the Housing Authority, they have existing programs and they execute their own programming with their funding. The RDA, or excuse me, like Housing Authority, they have a rental assistance program. They have a rehab program. These are defined programs. The more money they're in there, they can already put that money out immediately. RDA, assuming the new districts are approved, they have a program plan to execute on their own and will be able to execute as an organization. The process for the flex funding, you're waiting for someone else to bring a project, and then it's weighed and measured to see if it's something that the community likes, and it's a recommendation, then goes to council. Then council has to determine, is it something they support? Then it's approved, and then you're waiting on somebody else to execute, and then you follow up to make sure, did they execute according to contract terms? The two organizations are either direct city organizations or directly facility affiliated. Their whole mandate is to do what they are defined to do by the city through their respective areas. So it's a little more direct and definitely more nimble.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think I'm more inclined of maybe going with one of those already existing organizations to be able to just do more of what they're already doing.
Okay, I think probably Councilmember Mbogo, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be supporting. I agree with Councilor Whitman, Wortman, what he said. But my question I would like to ask, I wish we have our attorney here so that he can answer for me. But I think Alan White, you can, I think, try to answer this question for me. Ms. Alan White, can you come forward, please? So I have this crazy idea, but I don't know. So I've been thinking, this idea came after Council Brewster said. So if this business come to Eau Claire, they hire our residents, and the residents have to stay somewhere, but they don't have affordable houses. Can we tie them when they come? We say, listen, if you have business here, you have to put 20,000 to affordable housing. Can we do that?
It would be difficult to link that together and make it a requirement. Potentially, and this would be more of a legal question than anything, if we were providing a specific amount of assistance, that could be a conversation. That's actually a conversation that our staff has been having with businesses for the 8 years that I've been here, and for probably a decade prior to that in other communities. Businesses used to do that regularly. Housing, business housing, employee housing. Some of the businesses are now starting to swing back that way. We have whole neighborhoods in this community that were built under that premise, and we are encouraging businesses to look at that. How much we can force them to do it, that's probably more of a legal question, whether it's a defensible piece.
Is it
but it is
outside of the scope of the work session also, maybe?
Yeah.
It's getting there. Councilmember Reed, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so.
Thanks, Jeremy. I was just curious, so last year the council approved $40K to Sojourner's House. Did that come from this fund, the Flexible Housing Fund, or did that come from somewhere else? I've got the article.
Sometimes there's ARPA money
40K to
too.
Sojourners, right?
Was that in the 2025 piece of it, Billy?
I believe that might be CDBG funding. I'm not 100% sure, but the housing fund didn't pay anything to Sojourner.
Gotcha.
There was a grant, a pass-through grant that happened, and then the participatory budgeting did pay for solar, but nothing from the housing fund that I'm aware of.
Gotcha.
We
Different fund.
had a rather unique amendment by former city
Oh.
manager Hirsch.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Kind of shifted a few different funding sources around and combined the flexible housing CIP item we had in prior years. So I think part of that, we'd have to research back on that one, because that one, we have to remind ourselves on. But yeah, that wasn't city funding, yeah. That was that 24 or 25?
That was last year, over the summer, I believe. We
Okay.
did 40,000 to help them stay open for the summer, but I'm not sure what
Oh,
funding that came from.
Okay. That was ARPA, I want to say, that's my first, because we had the cooling, the warming, yeah, yep,
Yeah.
I would say ARPA on that one.
Yeah, Vice President.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Clara's question about RDA versus Hawk, and, you know, I guess I'm curious to know if council supports an amendment and we increase the allocation for 27 to the Flexible Housing Initiative line item, I don't know, I mean, maybe staff can help me understand how much flexibility we would have available to us after that to shift funds between, I mean, I think that the scope of the work that RDA is doing falls within the umbrella of the purpose of this fund. But also I wanted to offer that the way I think about the two different things of if we give it to, we increase the RDA fund versus if we increase the Flexible Housing Initiative fund. RDA has a very specific purpose and the way they operate in terms of establishing their districts and using those funds to purchase and acquire properties. And anyhow, the Flexible Housing Initiative Fund would allow for things that are a little bit more creative. You know, we talked a little bit about the ECMA project where it's keeping people in their homes and keeping people in their affordable housing. And actually I liked what Andrew was saying actually about that, where we can't offer people rental assistance with this money, but in a way that's what this project when ECMA did. You know, we kept people's rent from going up through investing in capital projects through the HAWC funds and what they oversaw and council ultimately approved. So to me, it's two different strategies or approaches to housing. RDA is definitely, has a plan in place and can run and start implementing if when council approves that new district. But I would say that within the Flexible Housing Fund, I mean, it's in the name, there's a little bit more flexibility, there's more creative solutions that can be pursued, and I think there's potential to impact more homes. I know that Billy mentioned, $1 million could build 2 single-family homes, but I think about all of the other types of projects that are much smaller dollar amounts and how far that could go for more people in the community. So that's anyways, I just wanted to respond to that.
So the one thing to be aware of with the narrative for the Flexible Housing Initiative Fund, it does say use of funding should not, specific use is to be reviewed by the Housing Opportunities Commission and approved by the City Council. So it says funding can be used for a variety of initiatives to help address issues with housing insecurity in our community, but it does say specific use should be reviewed by HAWC. So if you desire to have it go like to the Housing Authority or the Hmong Mutual Assistance Association or allocated like we allocate some CDBG, it still looks like in the narrative that HAWC would have to approve that instead of going through the rubric. If you wanted to have that flexibility, then I would say, specify, set aside X amount, distribute it in conjunction with like CDBG applications where there's Energy Efficiency Navigator. The same program for Hmong Mutual Assistance Association got some money from CDBG. So you could also go that route. Or if you're comfortable with all of it going through and requiring HAWC approval, then it looks like the description is wide open. It just has that step in front in it, so.
My understanding is the rubric, ECMA did apply and used the prior scoring rubric that HAWC reviewed, and then that was approved by council. So I would see no reason why we couldn't allow the same thing to happen again. And I mean, RDA could apply for funds from HAWC and they could score whatever the proposed project would be and rank it amongst other applicants. And I don't know. Just, yeah.
we could also have it go half to HOC, half to RDA too. I mean, or some portion, maybe some of it even goes to the housing authority, I don't know.
Even the housing authority, yeah.
You could create a new fund, you know, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
We'll have some more things to think about.
I mean, it seems like, I mean, one of the concerns I have is the amount of staff time and also for applicants and volunteers and the public, like, to be able to use this money, like, through the system that we have. Like, I know that there's a whole, you know, effort to try to maybe to rewrite that, and that takes a lot of time too, but like I've liked having the flexibility, but I just wonder, you know, how much time and attention this has had to take over, like, we've had this fund now for 5 or 6 years, I think, and when was the last time we even dispersed any money? It's been since 2024.
I think some of the items, when it was combined, the 1 year with the Energy Efficiency Navigator, that came out of there, but I think we were looking at pre-pandemic contracts that came out after the pandemic and after I'd started in 2022. So we were using old affordable housing funds at that point. So I still have some of the 2024 funding on the books as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of in, so what Councilmember Brewster mentioned just about the longevity of the funds, like being able to have an impact, like the more ownership I think the city has, the better, and like using existing programs, just because like we could create 10 different methods for housing and it could really give us more options, but right now we already have 3 major ones, is my understanding. If we have housing authority and RDA and this fund that already exists, so like we could potentially, so the proposal seems to be focused on the flexible housing fund at this point and just making that larger. So just to clarify, that's what you're proposing. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I'm open to maybe if I don't know. I guess I'll have to work with my seconder, figure out exactly what we want to bring forward as a proposal after council's given input, which is helpful. I'm open to some split between RDA, an increase for RDA and the Affordable or Flexible Housing Fund Initiative Fund, but I think there's clearly a need, and to me, it's something we really need to do. And I guess I appreciate everybody's input. I mostly was wanting to understand what source of funding council was open to reducing in effort to increase these other balances. So, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't dove too far into that subject yet. So, does anyone have thoughts on that? I mean, I know that some of the parks projects have been mentioned. The streets are a concern to me because of the way we have increased vehicle registration fee, and with the where people are paying extra to hopefully improve our streets, right? So yeah, anyone have any other thoughts about things they would be up for reducing? So is it okay to ask who would be the definitive seconder that Vice President Schoen could work with most closely, because
I volunteered to be a seconder. Now I'm kind of feel like I'm getting bogged down in some of the weeds and details, and I do value everybody's thoughts on kind of where do we want to put money. Things that are ready to go, things that are going to be a little bit further down the line. So, but I'm happy to work with Councilmember Schoen, but if other folks want to, I don't know.
Yeah, does that sound good to have? Okay, so, when do we, So we have this 3-week gap here, which helps between now and the next council meeting, but that would still be required to have an actual proposal within a week and a half, if not sooner, right?
I'm sure if you wanna walk back into the packet for the public hearing on the 13th, what date is that? Oh, is it the 9th? 8th, okay, I don't have a calendar in front of me, so. We'd be looking at the 8th, if you would like to get something in the agenda packet for the public discussion. I do have some time in between there, we can work on the language. Again, we have that $250,000 amount. We could chip away at a few different items. If we're looking at finding $750,000, that's when you're looking at reducing streets and building projects is probably and we can also look at the council audio too, just because I think it's working right now. And there wasn't, the parking, when I spoke with the IS director, he talked about it not being the top priority this year. In 2026, we were gonna use that $40,000, I believe, was in this budget for planning and then the design of everything that we needed. And they have not started that yet, so. That's 240,000 there too, so I guess I'll have to work with you though on some of the offsets and what that amount drives that discussion.
Okay,
That's helpful.
Councilmember Orth?
Was the amount that we're talking about, the increase from 250 to 500 or 750, only, what we're talking about is only for 2027 though? Okay.
Correct.
So beyond that, we then would just keep the 250,000 as is in the CIP currently.
Right now, the directors submit those projects to the city manager. I guess my only reasoning for looking at 2027 is that we can change those in 28 through the rest of the CIP. Other future councils can change those, and I'm concerned about the year with the fire station in 2028, that I'm gonna have to change quite a bit of things, and it'll really disrupt, operations for a year, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm very much in favor of adding a significant amount to the flexible housing or however this goes. I spent the last few days reading this and I thought I knew a lot, but I don't. So as as we're kicking around all these different terms, I'm like, wow, there is a lot of avenues, and I really don't know anything about them, so I don't feel like I can speak to beyond that. I'm in favor of increasing the dollar amount, and as far as input about where to take it from, this all seemed very valuable to me. So,
Yeah, are there, so I know we have a lot of other stuff in the CIP, so, and we have a lot of our department directors here, so if there are any department directors that maybe want to speak to anything or things they want to dive into more, this would be a good time, I think, to do that. Oh, yeah, Larry.
Our police chief.
Yeah, if there's any council members that want to prompt a particular director to come up, that is fine too.
So thank you, Police Chief Matt. I'm always a student of life. So the thing that I always worry, when I see police, they give people tickets. Then I ask myself, when you give a day, you guys, do you know how many tickets people get, and where does this money go? Does this money go to general fund, or can we use this money to what is our city council? Jessica was pushing. How does the money go? Because I might ask like a foolish question, but please help me to teach me something.
Sure. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you or recite back how many citations that we issue in a day or annually. I can look it up and get back to you on that. As far as how the money, where it goes, as far as the general fund or where it goes to, I'd probably defer to Kitsy on that. And we probably would require some further research. I will say that most of the money from a citation, both a city ordinance citation and a state uniform traffic citation, there's quite a bit of that money goes back to the state for court fees as well. So the percentage of it that comes back to the city is actually rather small, and a very small percentage, but we don't see a ton of it. So.
The citation revenue does go back into the general fund. It isn't a lot. The mid 100,000s is speaking to me, but again, that's contingent on being able to have full-time staffing in the CSO hours. That would make the biggest impact. So we've seen peaks and valleys on that based on the current staffing in that level. So it is not something we use to pay for an FTE, for example. I wouldn't call it dependable or something that I budget on. Because I think the end goal is corrective action and compliance, and not making money off of citations for our department. So it's just helpful to have that, kind of, if other lines are short for the year, I guess is how I treat it.
Yeah, there are some ethical and legal concerns with enforcement action geared towards generating revenues. So. Just in the moment of pause there, I did kind of dig something out of the back of my brain there, but it's just more of a general number. Last year we conducted about 27,500 traffic stops. So that was a very high number. That was a significant increase. We had more staffing, and to Kitsy's point, we had more staffing and more officer time available to do that. But of those 27,500 traffic stops, about 50% of them we issue a citation. So officers have discretion on whether they issue a citation or they issue a written warning. All of our traffic stops, we do issue some type of paperwork geared towards corrective action and improving safety. Now, the bond amounts for them varies on what the offense is. So, but I can do some more looking to find out specific numbers. Go.
Thank you, Chief Rokas. Yeah, thank you.
And I think we do have Chief Jagger here. We've been in the planning stages of the fire station. If you do have any additional questions on the necessity of that, now is your time to kind of speak with him about that. But we will have further information that we can share as well. So
yeah, Chief Jagger. Yeah, it would be great if you came up maybe and spoke to that a bit. One of my questions is about the just identifying a location and paying for the location and how that ends up happening. And I know that can be a sensitive topic when we're talking about, and we have money for land purchases too. So just trying to figure out how the pieces come together.
So emergency and operational need, which Chief can talk about, determines the location for the best response time, and then that depends on, is it in a TID district, for example? Isn't it? Could that be donated land from Mayo Clinic, for example, or not? What are the expenses with demolition on any building we have, relocation, items like that? So we're still in those phases right now, but we're working at the best operational direction that needs to be. That is separate from the CIP project, but it really just depends on where that lands in order for me to give that answer. So there'll be more to come in next year's CIP about that. Hopefully we just have the funds on hand. So.
Okay. Yeah, Chief Jagger, is there, I guess maybe you could just give an overview of the project in terms of why it needs to be as big as it is, perhaps, and what would operate out of there?
Sure. So there was an independent study done in 2014 when we were considering going from a 6-station footprint to a 5-station footprint. And at that time, it identified the need to keep 6 stations, and then should there be such a time that Station 2 is remodeled or replaced because it was built in 1941, that it should be relocated due to response times across the river. Now, response times,
equal to basically the time you call 911, by the time everybody dons their gear, gets on the truck and reaches the identified location. And that's per NFPA 1710, which is industry standards. When we did that study, it identified that on the west side, we have a coverage gap where we don't meet those response standards. And so as we continued to look at this project, in 2016, we came across Station 2 and said, now is not the time to take a capital improvement project on for that. And we subsequently took some dollars and remodeled Station 2, kind of improving the living quarters, doing a bunch of light remodel projects. With that, though, I mean, I can speak to quite a few of the deficiencies. I can speak to why the renovation is needed. Some of the biggest things are it doesn't meet the international building codes any longer. It is not ADA compliant. It does not meet current NFPA standards for health and safety recommendations for personnel. It is undersized, even for the type of apparatus. We just had, unfortunately, a couple accident reports come in over the weekend because when you're backing a truck in and it's the only way to get it in the doors, you have less than a foot on each side. And it actually caught the folding down stairs a couple of times and scraped the stairs up because, and as we pull the stair, as we do what we have to do truck checks on a daily basis, when we pull them out of the station to do the truck checks, we're already impeding into the lane of traffic there. And due to the fact that the bridge is out, we can only turn one way, which adds response times to that west side currently. And so that's one of the things related to that. Some of the challenges, like I talked about, there is no training room there. That is our central located station, and we have to, currently we go to Station 8 for any department-wide training, which was well-built and well-constructed. So we have to there, and we recognize the fact of when we want to hold department-wide trainings, the best location would be centrally located, so we could respond out to any type of those emergencies. We talked about the ineffective personnel decontamination areas. Currently, all our gear is located on the apparatus floor. That's no longer a standard. When you remodel and or build, that's allowable because all the contaminants of the exhaust as you leave the stations get in your gear and then off gas throughout a period of time, which increases negative impacts to your health and safety benefits there. The battalion chief's watch office where they sleep because of as they manage their shifts also located on that floor with no negative pressure there. So all of those carcinogens are in his living quarters for that. If you've had an opportunity to tour that station, it's not necessarily gender compliant. We have one bathroom for the 7 daily people staffed there. We have one living quarters with bunk rooms where we have dividers and curtains, but not for privacy, that provide limited privacy, but no decompression time. The workout room is also compiled in that area. So when, for instance, when we go to a fire, one of the things that we do is make sure personnel can take showers when they come back, get the carcinogens out before they are put back in service to go to another call. There's one shower for those people to work through. So there's some difficulties there related to that. As I mentioned, response times, and the key element of that is that NFPA 1710 standards requires 4 personnel to arrive within 50 minutes, 90% of the time. For that west side, we don't meet that currently. And chances of survival on an EMS incident decrease every 7 to 10% for every minute without CPR or an AED. So those are substantial things. Your basic life support should arrive within 5 minutes. Again, something that we don't meet based on the thing. When we looked at identifying additional locations for that, the response criteria is number 1 for us. The size and scope, getting back to your original question, as I've kind of skipped around a little bit, for an admin station that provides the service that we do, we're actually on the smaller scale of other competing cities our size or larger for an admin station. So we're trying to really be efficient as to how we build and what we build in there, Right now, conceptually, I know Director Winters has a picture of what it kind of looks like, but it has some amenities that, if the project needed to, potentially have modifications that could be removed. But by and large, it needs to be a 50 to 75-year building. As you see, this one was built in 1941, and has to accommodate the growth within the city and possible consolidations in the future should we have any shared services and go down that route. And the final element to that is one of the things that we have to be cautious of when we have dignitary visits or anything like that are bridges. And should we have a major failure or a bridge construction project where we couldn't do that, right now, extended response times because we only have a certain amount of fire stations located on opposite sides of the river. So all of that hopefully will answer some of your questions. Do you have more specific questions to aid in this project? To put it in perspective, the footprint is similar to Fire Station number 10. In 2018, when we built Fire Station number 10, the cost of construction was just under $200 a square foot. Currently, if we were to approve the project today for next year, it's about $400 a square foot. If we wait to 2028 to build it as forecasted and understood, you're looking at $500 to $550 a square foot, just based on inflation costs. Director Winters talked about we are applying for grants on a regular basis to offset this cost. Our strongest next step is land acquisition. So the new grants that will be coming out in the spring, one of the questions is, do you have the land appropriated for the project? We've had to answer no twice. Now, your strongest is always in your third application process, and that would be a box to check. And speaking with City Manager Solberg, he's made a valiant effort and will continue to be pursuing options for us so that we can check that box, and hopefully whether we get the 10 million or 5 million, but we can help subsidize the project through the grant funding.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's helpful, to know where that land acquisition kind of fits into. That means we're getting closer to this thing when we're talking about such things. That's good.
And it has been a project that's been on the has been part of the CIP for numerous years, and willingly we understand the financial impact that it has on the city, and we recognize, similar to this year, it was slated for 27, that should the need arise because there are other projects of importance, we can move it, but it does need to be relocated and it does need to be built, and the longer we wait, the harder that financial decisions will be for all of you as it comes to that time.
Sure.
Any other questions for me?
I've also heard about, the potential need for yet another fire station at some point in the next decade. Is there?
So one of the things that we are tasked to do as directors is kind of aid the city manager in upcoming projects in the future. And we know that through potential development of that west side, as it is part of the strategic plan of the city, if that fully develops in the manner in which is forecasted over the next 10 years, due to the geographical response times, you'd likely have to add a 7th station out in that area. And one of the things that we've been asking around the state are what are some of the costs that could offset that? And working with Director Winters, we've talked about impact fees and other things that we're going to be doing some studies on to see if we can do. So when that time arises in that next 5 to 10 years, hopefully there'll be some funds in reserve that would help offset the cost of building a new fire station. But in addition, finding money for personnel and what that looks like. But that is just based on the nature of calls that we continue to receive, the volume of calls that we receive, and then the geographical layout of the city, and adhering to NFPA 1710. We just wanted to put it out there as a thought so that when we are developing that area, if we have the ability to either purchase or maintain land, the project will be successful in the future at a less of a cost.
Great.
Any other questions?
That's all I have. Any other questions for Chief Jagar?
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Are there any other directors that council members have questions for? Any questions for Kitsy or other ideas? Oh, Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Councilor. About 45 minutes ago, I had a question for Kitsy. I just remembered what it was now. I think just in passing, you mentioned that there's about $1 million maybe allocated from the general fund to go into the CIP. I was kind of curious, how does that compare to other years? And then, given the fact that we have a tight budget all around, you can't borrow for the operating budget. So what's the rationale for taking $1 million from the operational budget and putting it to the CIP when you could borrow instead of doing that?
Sure. There's a couple things there. We used to use around $1 million annually. You want to look at how much is coming back in from the prior year and your current in those activities. There are some items that you can't borrow for, so we have to look at funding those with unassigned funds or cash, unused tax dollars. The other area of focus we'll be looking at with that, I'd have financial recommendations for still continuing an investment in risk management and also I'll have an actuarial study done, but starting with the self-insured fund and dedicating some of those dollars. Those aren't necessarily renewable. Our police department's getting closer to full staffing. They were the contributor primarily, the champion of the unused tax dollars, but unfortunately that was always based on overtime and not having adequate staffing. So we'd roll back $1 million of unused tax dollars, but we wanted to offset and keep the taxes as low as possible the following year. So we are getting back to that. By not doing any of the projects in the CIP, it does not help balance the operating budget. What it can be used for in place or the previous philosophies that we've used over the last couple years would have been one-time service modifications. So if we have a one-time investment, for example, on the high-speed rail, that would be a use of those funds. But I can't use that same $1 million to pay for 10 employees. So it's that's kind of what I would describe as an unbalanced budget because it's one-time money that you're hoping will last you and keep rolling forward. So, but at this point, we're in a good position where we can use those funds. I guess I would summarize. The other option would be one-time service mods, but again, all of our needs are not really necessarily one-time at this point. So.
Okay, thanks.
So I had a question just about some of the new dynamic that we're in, having passed the zoning code overhaul and like certain things. And Chief Jagger actually mentioned this idea of the impact fees, and like one of them that I believe was created as part of that was related to parks. Mm-hmm. So is there a fund that's starting to build up like that is reflected in the CIP to like actually support parks, or is it more operational, or like how does that work?
Sure. Well, step one is usually an impact study. Our auditors will require this if we start expanding those impact fees. It's something I'm looking at as a solution for the fire station that would be out over 10 years. So I'm kind of planning also for the next 10 years after what would be presented before you. So I'll start a study on that. The funds do have to be used around 8 years. They cannot be for existing maintenance. So I couldn't use them, for example, for Carson Park. But if you're developing a different area or a different park, we could look at those items. So City of Madison has a rather robust impact fee budget, and theirs is really interesting to look at. So, but theirs is housed in the CIP, so I would do the same.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
nothing substantial yet at this point. But I am going to do a study this year. Just to support what we already have, and then I was going to bring that forward under the suggestion of City Manager Solberg to look at part of our fiscal stability study. So it's one of the tools, it's one of the levers I can pull. When do we want to pull that? When do we want to start building that fund?
Okay. Cool. Well, I think we're... Are we ready to wrap up the conversation? Yeah, anything else that you want to share about the timeline? Or,
I-
yeah, because essentially the intent is to have the final public hearing on the 13th of July with the vote on the 14th, and the amendments would be due on the 8th of July.
I would say by the 8th, yes, if you want them in the packet.
We don't,
I
yeah.
do have some scheduling conflicts, so I know Thursday morning I have some availability, and just reach out to me if you want to set up a time on assisting with those. The holidays in there too, we've got some other obligations, but we'd definitely like to help you with the language on those. So. And I do have a spreadsheet I can email as well, if that's of any value, if you want to dig a little deeper in the CIP with the funding sources.
Okay, yeah, one resource that I would appreciate given the amendment being crafted is just a full list of all the money we've set aside for that flexible housing fund, and then where the money has gone and in a bit of detail on those projects that they funded. And I know we have that somewhere, but it'd be nice to have that.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think this work session is adjourned, and hope everybody has a nice evening.
Thank you.
You have something going on.